I'm Dr. Connie. I'm your host of Mind Your Health podcast. I share my unique perspective both as a practitioner and a patient battling autoimmune condition for over 25 years because I had to figure things out on my own, and my education and my practical approach as a patient allows me to truly integrate it so that you can be whole and the burden of sick care is no longer your own burden to carry. And this is what we help you with in this podcast. Hi, so today's a big topic, and it's a topic that might kind of surprise you, I suppose, but it's something we all have if you're a human being living in this day and age. And it's stress. Today I really want to uncover stress and its impact in your body so that you can really tackle what areas that you can improve to drastically up-level your game in your health and wellness to optimize yourself in the best way possible. Because when working with clients, number one question I ask them is about their family, about their work, about their biggest struggles that they might be having. And usually it's about their symptoms. And I will tell you time and time again, they'll usually say, not that stressed, right? When we talk about stress. But then when I ask them about these topics that I mentioned, then it goes on to, oh, my son, oh, my husband, oh, my doting mother. And it goes into all the reasons as to why they are stressed, but they don't know that they're having stress. And so you just have to sort of understand that this is part of human nature, right? I too have stress, and it's something that we all have to start and begin to embrace, because when you embrace your stress, the more you can be aware of the stress levels in your life, the more you can regulate it, control it, so that you can eliminate it, okay? And so that's why we want to be talking about it. So what exactly is stress? I want you to understand that stress does shift our body from parasympathetic rest and digest to sympathetic drive, right? Parasympathetic is very rest and digest. Sympathetic drive from our autonomic nervous system drives it into the fight or flight, right? And these two stressors or these two responses in the body from the autonomic nervous system is quite essential. But here's the thing is we need the stress to come on and then the level of stress hormones to surge. And then we want that level to come back down and reestablish baseline at the bottom. The problem is that most of us are driving on stress. We're up here and in this state of high cortisol, high stress neuro hormones, kind of flooding your body and affecting your metabolism and affecting all your sexual hormones and thyroid hormones. And that's where we stay stuck because we're constantly stressed. And then we tell ourselves that's our new baseline, when in fact your body needs to come back. So it doesn't have a chance to digest anything, digest and rest for this reason. So I really want you to understand that this negative cycle of being in this state of go, go, go and putting on the gas without ever taking a break and time to rest and digest or put in the gas in your car is going to only ruin your body. And when you experience stress, it's usually beknownst to the person that's going through you. But it does at first start to begin by deteriorating your gut barrier, gut lining, because your gut is very sensitive to stress. And it's our first defense against anything. And when that gut barrier begins to leak, it really becomes leaky gut and you start to have all the symptoms. But I will tell you, from the onset of stress to when you have symptoms might take months, might take years and years and years. It just varies. And so we can't really point to what stressor caused what. So it's more about what stress caused the symptom. It's more about, okay, that's what it did. We identified the stressor. How can we minimize its impact on my body so that my body has a chance to heal? And how do I modulate it in a way where I can help my body find its balance and reclaim its health? And that's really what this focus is about. I want to explain sort of this hypopituitary adrenal axis. It's called HPA axis. It's nothing other than to explain the fact that the impact of stress affects the whole hormones in the body. And I just want you to know HPA stands for hypothalamic, which is hypothalamus. It's in the brain that gets triggered when the person experiences stress. And it alarms the whole body to say, you watch out, here it comes. We have to kind of rev up. And then it goes to the pituitary gland to produce more hormones, to stimulate the adrenal hormones, to kind of pump up and get ready to run for our lives. It's to give us that energetic edge, so to speak, to kind of fight through this horrific thing that we may be experiencing. It's a complex system of various feedback interactions and mechanisms between the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis, then that has the impact in the whole body. It is a significant part of the neuroendocrine system in the body. Neuro meaning brain, endocrine meaning hormones in the body. And so when you have this cascade, it's very difficult, even for the most trained doctors, to isolate which emotional trigger or the stressor caused what responds over here at the specific level. Biochemically, it's impossible, but we know that it floods the system enough to create this symptomatic effect. I do want you to understand that the stress response begins in the brain when the hypothalamus perceives the stressor release, or it receives the stressor and alarms the body and releases what's called corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH. That in turn then stimulates the pituitary gland to then release adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is called ACTH, which travels through the bloodstream to the adrenal gland, which prompt the release of cortisol, which is the number one stress hormone in the body that impacts every cell in the body, okay? So this is where I want to kind of go into the systemic activation of the autonomic nervous system. Remember the sympathetic nervous system, which is part of the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system is part of the ease method that I utilize as a system in functional yoga medicine, but also autonomic nervous system has two parts. It's got the sympathetic nervous system, and then it's also has the parasympathetic nervous system. And I just want you to understand that sympathetic nervous system is activated almost simultaneously with the HPA axis. Okay, I'll say that again. Sympathetic nervous system is simultaneously affected and impacted by the HPA axis. The autonomic nervous system is, like I said, part of the ease methodology, and it's got two parts. Sympathetic, which is fight or flight, and then there's a parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And like I said, there's a baseline. We should be fight or flight, and then back to baseline, rest and digest. Fight or flight, back to rest and digest. And then in our daily lives today, in our modern world, most of us are stuck up here in fight or flight. You go at it long enough, that's going to create a lot of issues, because this can lead to release of catecholamines, adrenaline and noradrenaline neurochemicals from the neural or adrenal glands. And then when it gets long enough, it's almost like having your foot stuck on the gas pedal, and you go until you can't go anymore. And then sort of everything sort of crashes and it fatigues, and then you go kaput. And then your body has to balance that again. And then that starts to affect your sexual hormones, your thyroid hormones. And then there's a cascade of inflammatory cytokines within the body from all of this response, okay? The fight or flight response. The combined actions of cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline prepare the body for the fight or flight. It's getting ready to run for its life because your life is threatened, everything is a go, and oh my gosh, something is alarming and big, right? And this response is characterized by increased blood flow to the muscles so that you can run. And then you have enhanced alertness and temporary suppression of non-essential function like digestion, rest, as well as all the other organs, right? Reproduction. And when we are in this chronic physical state, it stumps our digestion, our thinking, our intimacy, our healing, our sleep, and all the other things that we commonly think about when we're humans. So let's now kind of go into the effect of stress, because now we understand the HPA axis is triggered from the stress levels that's coming into the system. The effect of stress. So the short-term stress really can help to enhance our immune system. It's when we have this long-term stress, it's that chronic inflammation. So low-grade inflammation that can go on to produce all the physiological changes, such as autoimmune conditions, various kinds, as well as cancer, cardiometabolic issues like heart disease, all come into play here as a result of really stress. And that's become bigger than itself to create these conditions. And then there's also the physiological and behavioral effects of stress. Stress can affect your mood, your behavior, and cognitive functions. It can lead to anxiety, depression, irritability, and changes in sleeping patterns. And I hope you're kind of starting to see all these things, how it all adds up. So I want to sort of kind of change gears a little bit and explain, how do you know when you're stressed? How do you identify stress? Because remember, when in stressful situation is something you've been experiencing. It may be your current baseline, which is unknown to you, but your body considers it as a normal state. Even in this hyper stress state, that might be your norm. So you might tell me, I don't have any stress, right? Because I have a lot of patients like that. I recently had a patient who was struggling with anxiety and depression and weight gain. She got put on some hormone replacement therapy. She had something implanted in her, and she decided it wasn't working because after years and months of it, she gained 40 pounds from her anti-anxiety medication. And the hormone that was given by her doctor because of poor libido and menopausal symptoms, it really wasn't doing anything. So she wasn't going to get it reimplanted. She was just going to let it zap out, get off of her meds. So I had to advise her. She came to me seeking holistic help, and I told her at first, you have to get rid of this, the implant for the HRT. And two, I wanted her to make sure to ask the doctor to check her thyroid function, and then also to make sure that if she's going to get off of her anti-anxiety medication, do it so under medical guidance, because you can't just go off something cold turkey. So those are the things. And then I prescribed her some things to help her with the modulation of different menopausal symptoms, like herbal supplements, and then something to aid her in the anxiety, and then something for her sleep, like gentle things like melatonin, but I gave her a little bit of herbal support as well. And that's the extent of which I did, along with a dietary plan that's not so complicated for her to follow. Because I've learned that, you know, upon closer examination, even with this patient, she told me she was doing all these things, but when I asked her about her living condition, she was living in a home, living under the same roof as a husband who's unwilling to go to any therapy, but is cheating on her, raising 3 kids under one roof, stressed out all the time at home because they are constantly fighting whenever they run into each other in the same home. And so you can only imagine the level of stress. But here she is, she got the hormone replaced, she got the anti-anxiety medication. It caused her this physiological weight gain. It's almost like that's when I really look to you and say, do we really need to go there, or do we address the root cause so that we can live a better life? Because sometimes I think the practicality of it and the simplicity of it stumps us so much that we love just to be complicated and just dwell in our sorrow. And I think I'm as guilty as charged too. So that's pretty much what I did with her. And I want you to sort of understand that. And I want you to understand that many people, if you don't recognize the stressors in your life, you're not alone in this. And that's why I'm just freely saying that you may not know. It may be unbeknownst to you. And in fact, I expect that. So how do you recognize stress when it happens? Because we're not taught to recognize stress in our bodies, right? So let's talk about identifying physiological responses that indicate stress. And that includes increased heart rate for obvious reasons. And then muscle tension, because when stress happens, what happens? We don't loosen up and relax. We tense up, right? So muscle tension. There might be headaches from clenching your jaw. There might be digestive issues because it's the first line of defense against any stressors that come. So it might be, the sites might be, the endothelial lining of our lining already may be affected. And fatigue is another one that a lot of people going through stress experience. There's also emotional responses that indicate stress is irritability, anxiety, depression, overwhelm, difficulty concentrating, all of which of my patient always complains of the same issues. I want you to notice when you experience these responses in health, finance, and relationships, because that's the three most common things that most people are stressed out about. And the three biggest areas of stress in most people, like I said, are health. Notice if stress triggers unhealthy habits, because when we're stressed, we don't do anything to help ourselves. It affects our behavior negatively. We snack on cookies to try to cope or numb our pain, or really drown in some wine, or just eat poorly with the excuse of, I'm stressed out, right? And then finances. Pay attention to stress related to financial concerns, such as debt or job security, because these are common things that we experience. Unexpected bills, like on the car, your kids, medical bills, what have you. Relationships. Observe if stress affects your interactions with your loved ones, causing conflicts or withdrawals. Is your spouse complaining a lot more? Are your kids demanding your attention a lot more? Are they acting up more? You might look in the mirror and see how well you've been showing up for them. Because the truth is that we're all conditioned with certain beliefs that were adopted from various people and authority figures in our lives, and we don't quite know how to address our stressors. We're learned to suppress and repress them and be on our best behavior and be professional. Just swallow our sorrow and put the best foot forward. And so I can tell you that most of us are really good at suppressing and repressing, but we're not really good about really recognizing these negative feelings, because when they flood up, all we do is try to numb and forget and try to eliminate right away. So no matter how hard things get, I want you to know I've been there and I've tried it all, including what do I call them? Mind-numbing agents like anti-anxiety and antidepressants. I've tried SSRIs because I really was in a deep place of funk and unhappiness for a long time in my past marriage. And so I tried the Prozac. I tried all those things, only to really find out that it wasn't until I really focused on my inner work through my journaling, movements. Any forms of movement works, but I love yoga because when you move, you metabolically sort of move things through, and then you connect your breath with movement in yoga specifically to really allow for silencing the mind and moving through so that you can find peace, love, and calm within, so that you can better manage and cope with the stressors without being emotionally and mentally derailed or charged up, so that all you're doing is reactive. This allowed me time and space to strategize and really think about my next steps in the most careful way possible. Third thing is breathing. Just whenever I feel something come up, I just take a deep breath in. And just deep breath out. And somehow or another, that calms my nervous system in a way where nothing else can. Going back to journaling, I just journal everything that's coming up for me without filter, without judgment to myself or anybody else, setting that time to just journal out everything that is bothering me. And then also taking the time to write out everything you want to create is the smartest thing you'll ever do. At this time, I want to end this episode by telling you we created the most amazing 7 Simple Lifestyles freebie that's going to include all the tools that you need to live your best life possible. Because as a gift to you, this resource provides practical tips for incorporating really the healthy habits. And I go a little bit deeper into each of the habits so that you can wrap your head around the why behind what you're doing. And then I tell you how to do it so that you can get going and start to help yourself in the biggest way possible. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Follow me for more. Please subscribe, and I'd love to see your comments come through. And thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Mind Your Health podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, we would so much love it and appreciate it if you share it with someone who could benefit as well as to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else where podcasts are found. And leave us a review. We would be so grateful, and it helps us to reach more people just like you, so you can become more empowered to enjoy longevity and health. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Dr. Connie Chung. And of course, you can subscribe to this podcast for a new episode every single